Good morning, students. This is Dr. Ganesham Chavan. Welcome back again in another session of Human Anatomy and Physiology. Students, in today's lecture, we will continue the topic which has been started from last 3 lectures, that is blood. In blood, we will continue regarding the topic erythrocytes, red blood cells. RBC is a singular biconcave non-nucleated disc. Also, we have discussed its composition. It's 62% water, 35% hemoglobin, and 2.5% sugar, lipids, proteins, and enzymes. If you will see its diameter is 6.5 to 8.8 micrometer. If you will see its thickness is its periphery is 2 to 2.5 micrometer, and at the center 2.5 to 1.5 micrometer. Its surface area is 140 micrometer square and volume is 78 to 94 micrometer cube. Now at birth 6 to 7 million cells per cells is the RBC count, but at adult it declined to 5 to 6 millions per ml in case of male, and in case of female 4.5 to 5.5 millions per ml. There are variation in size, shape and structures. Various terms are there that we are going to discuss here. In that, first term is anisocytosis. What is that? It is nothing but the variation in size of RBC. If sometimes size will be increased or decreased, so that variation occurs into the size of diameter of that RBC. It is nothing but the anisocytosis. Next term is poikilocytosis. It is nothing but the variation in the shape of RBC. Now the RBC are spherical in shape. Sometimes they can be squeezed into the elongated shape. It means the shape like cylindrical shape or any sort of change into the shape. That is nothing but the poikilocytosis. Next is spherocytosis. Spherical RBC are more fragile, so that they become completely spherical because they are packed in their size. But if they become spherical, means completely round in structure, so they will become more fragile. Anemia, reduction in the number of RBC cell than the 4 millions per mm cube. If they are less than that condition is called as anemia, and their hemoglobin content is less than 12 gram per dl or both. Next important term is polycythemia. It is nothing but the RBC count increases more than 6 million per cell per ml. So it is a condition when our RBC count becomes too much, means the blood becomes too much viscous due to the increase in RBC count. It can be occurs by the various causes like physiological, by at the birth, at high altitude due to the chronic hypoxia. What is hypoxia? Hypoxia is a condition when our oxygen carrying capacity is going to be declined. Our oxygen level in our blood is going to be declined. So that condition is called as hypoxia. Pathological, congenital heart disease which produces hypoxia, they are also responsible for this condition. Dehydration is also one of the condition due to which the condition like polycythemia will develop. And shock, and lastly tumor of bone marrow, that also going to be increase the size of or the numbers of RBC. It will also going to develop the condition like polycythemia, because if the tumor will develop to our bone marrow, means uncontrolled rate they will start to form RBC and WBC, and due to which our RBC count is going to be reached near about 7 to 8 millions per ml. At birth RBC are larger in size and count in 6 to 7 millions per ml. PCV is 54% since count is more. Reticulocytes are 2 to 6% of RBC count, decrease to less than 1% during the first week after birth, which they level and maintain throughout the life. Significance of absolute values. In the iron deficiency anemia and thalassemia, MCV is nothing but the mean corpuscle volume, and the MCH, it is nothing but the mean corpuscle hemoglobin, and MCHC is nothing but the mean corpuscle and hemoglobin concentration. So they are reduced. In anemias due to acute blood loss and hemolytic anemia, MCV, MCH and MCHC are all within normal limits. In megaloblastic anemias, MCV is raised above the normal level. Erythropoiesis. This erythropoiesis, development of RBC, is termed as erythropoiesis. It is also called as hemopoiesis. In hemopoiesis, there is formation of all the types of blood cells. In the intrauterine life, there are 3 stages. In that, first stage is mesoblastic stage. In the early embryo up to 3 months of fetal life, RBC are formed from the mesoderm of yolk sac or area vacuosa. Although some lymphocytes have a lifetime measured in years, most form elements of blood last only hours, days, weeks, must be replaced continuously. Negative feedback symptoms regulate the total numbers of RBC and platelets in circulation, and their numbers normally remain steady. The abundance of different types of WBC, however, varies in response to changes by invading pathogens and other foreign antigens. The process by which the formation of elements of blood develop is called hemopoiesis. Before birth, hemopoiesis first occurs in the yolk sac of the embryo and later in the liver, spleen, thymus, lymph nodes and fetus. Red bone marrow becomes the primary site of hemopoiesis in the last 3 months before birth, as continue as source of blood cells after birth and throughout the life. Means once it has been started in the development into the red bone marrow, so throughout the life it will continue its formation. Since the erythropoiesis occurs within the blood cells, this stage is also called as intravascular erythropoiesis. Red bone marrow is highly vascularized connective tissue located in the microscopic spaces between the tubercle of the spongy bone tissue. Hepatic stage. After 3 months of fetal life, liver and spleen are the site of blood formation. Nucleated RBC develops from the mesenchyme between blood cells and tissue cells. These cells also called extravascular erythropoiesis. Myeloid stage. From the middle of fetal life, erythropoiesis occurs in bone marrow, and throughout the life it continues into the bone marrow. Most of the blood is formed into our bone marrow. This is the stage called extravascular erythropoiesis. In children, all born with red bone marrow, liver and spleen. In adults, after 18 to 20 years from red bone marrow, means from the red bone marrow all the blood is going to be formed, erythropoiesis will occur. End of the long bones like humerus and femur. This is the major site of formation of blood like humerus and femur. Why? Because these are the large bones, they are the long bones where we will get the high area, large area for bone marrow where we can produce our blood. Skull, vertebrae, ribs, sternum and pelvis, these are also the site for bone marrow. If marrow is destroyed, then liver and spleen becomes important sites for hemopoiesis. Now hemopoiesis can be occurs by the various types of cells. For example, hemocytoblast, these are the stem cells. They are also called as pluripotent stem cells. After that, proerythroblast. After that, next stage is early normoblast. After that, intermediate normoblast, late normoblast, early, after that late, and the reticulocytes and the erythrocytes. So these are the various stages for formation of RBC. So from the stem cells to the erythrocytes, this is the journey for formation of RBC. Erythropoiesis. So first from the stem cells, it is called as hemocytoblast. It is also called as pluripotent cells. Can be formed proerythroblast. It is a committed cells. After that, the developmental stages, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. In that phase 1, the ribosome synthesis, which form the early erythroblast. In phase 2, hemoglobin accumulation occurs, which form the late erythroblast. After that, normoblast, and in the last phase 3, ejection of nucleus, and after release of nucleus, it will become the reticulocytes, and last it is the erythrocytes. So this is the journey for formation of RBC only. Now we will see the journey of whole cells. So here, so in this figure, you can see the development of all the blood cells will occur from these pluripotent stem cells. These pluripotent stem cells are also called as hemocytoblast. Red bone marrow is highly vascularized connective tissue located in the microscopic spaces between tuberculi of spongy bone tissue. It is present chiefly in the bones of axial skeleton, pectoral and pelvic girdles, and the proximal epiphyses of the humerus and femur. About 0.05 to 1% of red bone marrow cells are derived from the mesenchyme and are called pluripotent stem cells. They are also called as hematocytoblast. These cells have the capacity to develop into many different types of cells. In newborn, all bone marrow is red and thus active in blood cells production. As an individual ages, the rate of blood cell formation decreases. The red bone marrow is the medullary cavity of long bones becomes inactive and is replaced by yellow bone marrow, which consists largely of fat cells. Under certain conditions such as severe bleeding, yellow bone marrow can revert to red bone marrow. This occurs as a blood forming stem cells from the red bone marrow move into the yellow bone marrow, which is then reproduced by the pluripotent stem cells. So here this is the pluripotent stem cells. It is responsible for the myeloid stem cells and the lymphoid stem cells. These are the two types of stem cells which can be found by these pluripotent stem cells. The stem cells in red bone marrow produce themselves, proliferate and differentiate into the cells that give rise to blood cells, macrophages, reticular cells, mast cells and adipocytes. Some stem cells can also form osteoblast, chondroblast and the muscle cells and may be destined for use as a source of bone, cartilage and muscular tissue for tissue and organ replacement. The reticular cell produce reticular fibers which form stroma that supports red bone marrow cells. Blood form nutrients and metaphyseal arteries enter a bone and passes into the enlarged and leaky capillaries called sinuses, thus surrounded bone marrow stem cells and fibers. After blood cells form, they enter sinuses and other blood vessels and leave the bone through nutrients and periosteal veins. These exceptions of lymphocytes from elements do not divide once they leave red bone marrow. Now here this is the major site for the formation of various types of cells. For example, progenitor cells, precursor cells, after formation of elements of circulating cells, tissue, and also CFU, it is column forming units, erythrocytes. CFU make column forming units for megakaryotes, and CFU column forming units for granulocytes, macrophages. In order of to form blood cells, pluripotent stem cells in red bone marrow produces two further types of stem cells which have the capacity to develop into several types of cells. These stem cells are called myeloid stem cells and the lymphoid stem cells. Myeloid stem cells begin their development in red bone marrow and give rise to red bone cells, platelets, monocytes, neutrophils, eosinophils and basophils. So these are the various types of blood cells. Lymphoid stem cells begin their development in red bone marrow but complete in the lymphatic tissues. They give rise to lymphocytes. Although the various stem cells have distinctive cells, definite identity markers in their plasma membrane, they cannot be distinguished histologically and resemble lymphocytes. During the hemopoiesis, some of the myeloid stem cells differentiate into progenitor cells. Other myeloid stem cells and lymphoid stem cells develop directly into the precursor cells. Progenitor cells are no longer capable of reproducing themselves and are committed to giving rise to more specific elements of blood. Some progenitor cells are known as colony forming units. Following the CFU designation is abbreviation that indicate the mature elements of blood that will produce. So here you can see this is the CFU units. So this is the CFU-E, CFU megakaryotes and CFU-GM, granulocytes, macrophages. Now following CFU designation is abbreviation that indicate the mature elements of blood that will produce. CFU-E ultimately produce erythrocytes. Here you can see CFU-E can produce the erythrocytes. CFU make produces the megakaryotes. CFU make, they will produce the megakaryotes, means platelets they will produce. CFU-GM ultimately produces the granulocytes, specifically neutrophils, monocytes. Yes, so here CFU-GM will produce the eosinophils, basophils, neutrophils and monocytes. In the next generation, the cells are called precursor cells, also known as blast. So this is after the colony forming units, there are the various blasts are available here. Over several cell division, they develop into the actual form elements of blood. For example, monoblast develop into the monocytes, eosinophilic myoblast develop into the eosinophils and so on. So this basophilic will produce the basophil and this myeloblast will produce the neutrophil. So like this, so on. Like this they will produce the each and every cell. Several hormones called hemopoietic growth factors regulate the differentiation and proliferation of particular progenitor cells. Erythropoietin, try to understand erythropoietin, is also called as EPO, which can be released from the kidneys. So erythropoietin releases the number of red blood cells precursors. This EPO or erythropoietin is produced primarily by the cells in the kidney that lies between the kidney tubules, peritubular interstitial cells. With renal failure, EPO release is slow and RBC production is inadequate. This leads to a decrease hemocrites, means RBC count is going to be decline, which leads to decreased ability to deliver oxygen to the body tissue. Thromboplastin, it is also called as TPO, is the hormone produced by the liver that stimulates the formation of platelets. This thrombopoietin is responsible for stimulation of production of platelets from megakaryotes, and several different cytokines regulates the development of different blood cell types. Cytokines are small glycoproteins that are typically produced by cells such as red bone marrow cells, leukocytes, macrophages, fibroblasts, and endothelial cells. They generally act as a local hormones. The cytokines stimulates proliferation of progenitor cells in red bone marrow and regulate the activities of cells involved into the non-specific defense such as phagocytes and immune response such as B cells and T cells. Two important families of cytokines that stimulates white blood cell formation are colony stimulating factors CSF and interleukins. So in this fashion, the formation of various types of blood cells occurs in our body. Now here, regulation of erythropoietin. The erythropoietin stem cells, after that this pre-erythroblast, it leads into the formation of red blood cells and tissue oxygen, and once if tissue oxygen is going to be decreased, it gives message to our kidneys to release this erythropoietin, and this after the release of erythropoietin from the kidneys, from peritubular cells, what they will do, they will increase the hemopoiesis, hemopoietic stem cells, pluripotent cells, they will release the pre-erythroblast and so on, and finally RBC count will going to be decreased, and due to which the tissue oxygen going to be decreased. So there are various factors that decreases oxygenation. That first is low blood volume. If you are having less blood volume, less blood, it is also responsible for less into our oxygen volume, because the RBC hemoglobin which contains RBC that carries the oxygen, and due to which the oxygenation will going to be decline. Second condition is anemia. In this condition also the RBC count is going to be declined, and due to which the oxygen level going to be decrease. Low hemoglobin, if you are having less hemoglobin percentage in your body, it is also one of the reason for less oxygen in your body. Poor blood flow, if you are having less blood flow, less blood volume, it is also responsible for less oxygen. Pulmonary disease, if you are having any disease of our lungs, disease of our trachea, disease of our alveoli, if you are having the disease like asthma or disease like emphysema or COPD, so it also leads into the formation of that mucus into our alveolar cells, in our bronchial cells, and due to the bronchitis or the similar disease may leads into the decrease into our oxygen carrying capacity. Now this is the next topic that I will like to discuss with you. This is nothing but the RBC cycle. Now once the RBC has been formed, in our last slides here the RBC has been formed here. Now after that we should know what is its journey, how the RBC is going to be worn out, or from the RBC, from the actual RBC, how their degradation will occur, how the complete life cycle of 120 days of RBC will occur in our body. So one by one we will see. There are total 14 points. 14 points are there, and all the points we will see one by one. The red blood cells live only about 120 days, because the wear and tear their plasma membranes undergo as they squeeze through blood capillaries. Without a nucleus and other organelles, RBC cannot synthesize new components to replace damaged ones. The plasma membranes becomes more fragile with age, and the cells are more likely to burst, especially as they squeeze through narrow channels in the spleen. Ruptured RBC are removed from the circulation and destroyed by fixed phagocytic macrophages in the spleen and liver. What is spleen? Spleen is the organ which regulates the clarification of our blood. Means if any pathogen is there in our blood, it can be engulfed by our spleen. Spleen is nothing but the sanitary department of our blood. If any damaged blood cell is there, so it can be destroyed by spleen, because spleen contains the phagocytosis, it contains the macrophages for phagocytosis. It not only it kills the bacteria, viruses, but also it kills the worn out RBC cell, worn out WBC cells. Means the damaged or ruptured cells are going to be engulfed by our spleen. They can be cleared by our spleen. Now in this fashion, the spleen is doing its function. Now the ruptured RBC are removed from the circulation and destroyed by the fixed phagocytosis in the spleen, and also it occurs in the liver, and breakdown processes are cycled and used in the numerous metabolic processes, including the formation of new red blood cells. The cycling occurs as follows. So if you will see, we will start from this first point, the red blood cells death and phagocytosis. As the red blood cells is going to be complete their 120 days, means after their age is 120 days. So after that age, the cell is going to be breakdown, and after the breakdown, the phagocytosis will occur. So there are various points that we will see one by one. The macrophages in the spleen, liver or red bone marrow phagocytize and worn out red blood cells. What is worn out red blood cells? The blood cells which have completed their 120 days, means now they becomes old, they becomes aged. They are called as worn out blood cells. Means they are no more used for oxygen carrying. So they will not utilize for carrying of oxygen and release of oxygen and taking of CO2. So for this function they are not utilized. Means they are not useful, they are useless. So they are called as worn out blood cells. Now second point is the globe and heat portion of hemoglobin are split apart. Now here you can see in second part. So whatever the heme portion is there, means the portion which contains the ferrous, which contains the iron, from this RBC it contains the hemoglobin. So it will release that heme part from the RBC, and here in the stage 3 what will happen? The heme part will be separated, and at the same time the globin part, it is a protein part, the alpha and beta amyloid, that globins are there, so that two peptides of alpha and beta globins, so they can be removed easily and they can be given to the amino acids in the form of amino acids, this globin, and they will synthesize, they can be reused for the development of the muscles or the formation of the hormones or enzymes. Here the globin is broken down into the amino acids which can be reused to synthesize the other proteins. Now here they can be synthesized for the other proteins. Now the next point is iron is removed from the heme portion in the form of Fe3+, which associate with the plasma protein transferrin. So here what is transferrin? It is the transporter of iron molecule. So this iron can be transported from the blood towards the our liver. So it can be transport that iron molecule, transferrin, toward the liver, and it can be stored into our liver. Now next point, in muscle fiber, liver cells and macrophages of the spleen, liver, the Fe3 means iron detaches from the transferrin and attaches to the iron storage protein called detritus. So here, so from the from the transferrin, which is the carrying of iron, which can be carried from the blood toward the our liver. So here it can be stored in the form of ferritin. It will detach the transferrin and it will attach to ferritin. Ferritin is the storage form of the iron, and this iron will be stored into our liver. On release from the storage site of absorption from the gastrointestinal tract, the Fe3 reattaches to the transferrin. So again, after that it will again reattaches. It can be absorbed from the intestine, and again it will reattaches to the transferrin. Fe3 transferrin complex is then carried to the red bone marrow, where the precursor cell take it for hemoglobin synthesis. So again it will, here you can see, again it will combine to the transferrin. This is the transporter of iron, Fe3. Again it will, from here it will go back toward the red bone marrow. Here in the long bones, especially in case of femur, humerus or radius ulna, in the long bone it will transport from this liver toward the red bone marrow of our long bones. And here that Fe3 again utilized for the formation of red blood cells with the help of vitamin B12, erythropoietin, globin. Again these globin molecules can be taken back from the our blood, and it can be attaches to the heme, and again it will form the hemoglobin, and it will responsible for production of RBC. So here in our red bone marrow, again the formation of this RBC will be occurred. The erythropoiesis in red bone marrow results in the production of red blood cells, which enter into the circulation. So once here the RBC is going to be produced, means the erythropoiesis will occur in this red bone marrow with the help of vitamin B12, globin, it is a protein, and the Fe. So by combining all, again we are having the folic acid, which is also responsible for erythropoiesis, and they will produce the new RBC, and this new RBC will circulate in our blood all over the body. Means they are ready for circulation, they are ready for the oxygenation, carrying of oxygen from one cell to the another cell. Now when iron removed from the heme, the non-iron portion of heme is converted to biliverdin. Here you can see. So from the heme, when from this RBC, when we are removing the heme part, means the iron part, when you are removing the iron part, also are removing the globin part. So whatever the portion, the remaining portion of our RBC is there, it is called as biliverdin. It is the green part, it is called biliverdin, and when it get converted into the yellow pigment, it is called as bilirubin. Here when the iron removed from the heme, the non-iron portion heme is converted into the biliverdin, which is green in color, and then into the bilirubin, which is yellow orange pigment. Now 10th point, the bilirubin enters the blood and transported to the liver. So this bilirubin enters the blood, and again it will transport into our liver. Within the liver, bilirubin is released by the liver cells into the bile, which passes to a small intestine and then large intestine. So here you can see So from here again the journey of bilirubin will start and it will go into the small intestine, and again it will go into the large intestine. Now here try to understand, there is the relation between bilirubin and the RBC. In the condition like jaundice, the high proportion of RBC breakdown will occur, and due to which there is large proportion of bilirubin will develop, and due to which our skin will become yellowish tint of skin will occur in all over the body parts. Also our sclera will become yellowish. Why it happens? It occurs due to the high proportion of bilirubin has been developed into our body or into your blood, and again it will carry out into a small intestine and to your large intestine. And with the help of bacteria in the large intestine, the bacteria is available. This bacteria is responsible for conversion of that bilirubin into the urobilinogen. This urobilinogen is going to be developed. So here within the liver, bilirubin is released by liver into the bile, and which passes into the small as well as into the large intestine. In the large intestine the bacteria is there, and that bacteria is going to be convert that bilirubin into the urobilinogen. Some urobilinogen is absorbed back into the blood. So here you can see some urobilinogen is again absorbed back into the blood, and when it will go into the blood, so from the blood it will directly go into the kidney, and it will get converted into the urobilin, and this in the form of urobilin they will release into the urine, and this urobilin gives the natural color of our urine, means the pale yellow color, which can be developed by this urobilin, which can be developed of once that bilirubin is going to be convert into the urobilin, and in the kidney it will release into the urine. Again if you will see, the urobilinogen is absorbed back into the blood, converted into the yellow pigment called urobilinogen, and excreted into the urine. So here excreted into the urine, means the urobilinogen get converted into the urobilin and it will be excreted into your urine. Now again this urobilinogen is again going to be converted into the stercobilin into the large intestine. That stercobilin is also another yellow pigment, and which gives the natural color to our feces, and they can be excreted in the form of feces. So in this fashion the whole journey of this RBC, from RBC toward the new RBC and toward the urobilin and toward the stercobilin. In urobilin it gives natural color to our urine, stercobilin gives natural color to our feces. So this is the journey of our RBC, which occurs in this fashion. So students, in this way we have completed this RBC cycle as well as the hemopiesis in today's lecture. I hope you understood my lecture. If you have any sort of queries, you can contact me at any time. So thanks a lot for hearing my lecture, and have a nice day. Bye.